Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Olumide Macaulay.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari asks youth to end street protests and engage in meaningful discussions with government towards ending all forms of police brutality in the country. Human rights groups RAP, 261 others asked court to overturn the 9 million naira fine imposed on 3 television stations over their broadcast of EndSARS protests. Global rights body Amnesty International says it has received reports of extrajudicial killings in River States, asked the military to exercise restraint in dealing with civilians. And President Donald Trump and Democratic candidate Joe Biden hold rallies in key battleground states with just 2 days before the U.S. presidential elections. President Muhammadu Buhari is reiterating his call on youth across the country to bring an end to the protests and participate in meaningful discussions with government towards achieving comprehensive police reform. The president's latest appeal is contained in a message to mark the maiden National Youth Day celebration in the country. In a statement by his spokesperson, Garba Shehu, President Buhari assures the youth of the readiness of the federal government to listen to concrete and practical ideas while acknowledging their constitutional rights to peaceful protests. The statement reads in part, "Every successful protest movement the world over has understood that there comes a time when activity must move from the street to the negotiating table. That time for you has come. Do not be afraid of this reality. You should welcome it. It's important that we all strive to use this movement constructively. Too many people have already sacrificed too dearly. It's our duty to use this fateful situation to move ourselves to a more just and caring society. As youth, you have a nation and a future to build. My government will always be your faithful partner in this essential and patriotic endeavor." Restating his call for national unity, President Buhari says Nigerian youth are better positioned to drive the indivisibility of Nigeria and collectively overcome whatever challenges are presently confronting the country. Meanwhile, as part of efforts to douse the tension and crisis generated by the recent EndSARS protests across the country, 4 governors have met with traditional and religious leaders in Kaduna to interface with them on how best to address the socio-economic challenges. The governors, which include Mohammed Badaru of Jigawa, Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto, Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti, and Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna, say one good way of entrenching good governance is by prioritizing programs and policies that will impact positively on the lives of their people.
The nationwide EndSARS protest against police brutality and bad governance may have died down, but the level of destruction of property and loss of lives in the aftermath still lingers. Many states have also set up a Judicial Commission of Inquiry into police brutality in line with the demands of the protesters. Here in this hall are 4 state governors who, in spite of party affiliations, hold a strategic engagement meeting with traditional and religious leaders over the unrest arising from the EndSARS protest. Also in attendance are the Ministers of Environment and Finance, who are both indigenes of Kaduna State. The host governor, Nasir El-Rufai, sets the tone for discussion by highlighting some of the programs of his administration as he advocates the need to maintain peace.
People that do these things hide their own children at home and push the children of ordinary people to be the ones on the street. So be very careful before you're used.
On their part, the governors of Jigawa and Sokoto states admit that as elected leaders, they are obliged to promote good governance.
Books are open, but people choose not to see the books. We keep saying, this is what we got per month. This and this is what we do. But people are not seeing that.
Yes, the Constitution has guaranteed and engendered freedom of expression, freedom of even protest, but there is limits to it.
While urging parents to advise their children to toe the path of dialogue, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning advises youths to key into the 75 billion naira federal government youth intervention fund in order to make them self-reliant.
I want to appeal to our leaders and practitioners rulers to help the community in calling the attention of parents that we have failed our children in the sense that the kind of values, family values we used to have, we don't have them anymore. We need to remind ourselves and our children that they need to be upright and that this criminality that is going on a daily basis is not for their benefit and is certainly not for the benefit of our state.
Although the End SARS protest may have triggered this kind of interface with the people, it is believed that regular consultation may be the way forward between the government and the governed.
And in Cross River State, the governor, Ben Ayade, has condemned the recent looting and vandalism of public and private property by those who took advantage of the nationwide protest to demand for an end to police brutality and other forms of human rights abuse. Speaking during a meeting with heads of religious groups at the state's executive chamber in Calabar, the state capital, he asked them to use the pulpit as correctional and reformational centers to appeal to the conscience of their followers.
Men of God, you have too much work to do because we have a polluted country. We have a polluted country. The leaders are bad. The succeeding generation, I don't see hope. So who is going to bail who? Yet this is the biggest, the most populous black race in the world resides in Nigeria. Every single black man looks unto Nigeria. It means that we look unto you, they look unto me. Our young men, those youths, watching them go and loot, watching an underage child struggling with a chair from somebody's house with a TV. And that is a generation that seeks to lead. The church will have too much work to do.
Civil servants in Adamawa State have thrown their weight behind the state government's efforts towards the recovery of looted items. The civil servants made their position known during a media briefing in Yola, the state capital, where they lament the looting and vandalism of healthcare facilities and its effect on healthcare delivery in the local government areas.
Adamawa State has suffered a lot of devastation following the looting of private and public facilities in the state as an aftermath of the End SARS protest across the country. Property worth billions of naira carted away and structures vandalized by irate youth. Of great concern is the looting of the Adamawa State Primary Healthcare Development Agency, the state essential drug store, and that of UNICEF. A laboratory scientist with the Primary Healthcare Agency describes the looting as criminal.
No office is left, no store is left, no property that are available are left. They vandalize everything. This is really criminality. Indeed, it's very heartbroken.
It is for this reason that leaders of Local Government Workers Forum, comprising those from the local government councils, the Local Government Education Authority and primary healthcare services across the 21 local government areas of the state, are holding this media briefing to draw the attention of citizens on the impact of the carnage by the youth. They are calling on traditional and religious leaders to publicly condemn the wanton looting by the irate youth so as to forestall a recurrence.
We condemn the lootings and stealing of government and individual properties in its totality and are calling on our teeming youth to be calm and support this government for the betterment of our lives and our future generation.
Governor Umaru Fintiri, during his tour of facilities vandalized by the rampaging youth, described their action as an attack on the commonwealth of the state and appeals for the support of the people.
We have started development so that we can have economic recovery in the state. And this should be supported by all assembly. This should be supported by every Adamawa sons and daughters. It's not about the governor. It's about all of us, our common interest.
Although the forum expressed regrets that the resources that would have been used for the development of other areas will now be used to restore the damaged facilities, they appealed to religious and traditional leaders to caution the youth in their various communities to be law-abiding instead of sabotaging government efforts.
Socioeconomic rights and accountability project SERAP, as well as 261 concerned Nigerians, civil society and media groups have sued the National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC, as well as the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, asking the court to declare as arbitrary, illegal, and unconstitutional the 9 million naira fine imposed on Channels Television, AIT, and Arise TV, fined 3 million naira each, over their coverage of the NSAS protests, and to stop the NBC from taking the money. The plaintiffs are seeking an order setting aside any other penal sanction as well, unilaterally imposed by the NBC and Mr. Lai Mohammed on the stations, and on any other broadcast organization for simply carrying out their professional and constitutional duties. The suit filed on behalf of the plaintiffs by their lawyers, Kolawole Uluwadare, Adelanke Aremo, and Okwemi Owolabi, reads in part, a fine is a criminal sanction and only the court is empowered by the Constitution to impose it. Fine imposed by regulatory agencies like the NBC without recourse to the courts is illegal, unconstitutional, and offends the sacred principles of natural justice and fairness. The plaintiffs say it's the duty of the government to allow the legal and judicial powers of the states to function properly, as imposing any fine whatsoever without due process of law is arbitrary, as no one can be a judge in his own case, and no one shall be condemned unheard. Furthermore, they describe the Constitution as the grand norm and the fundamental law of the land, insisting all other laws, including the NBC Act and any associated codes, take their positions from the provisions of the Constitution. Meanwhile, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, has vowed that the Buhari-led government will end impunity for crimes against members of the public and journalists in Nigeria. In a statement from the Minister's office in commemoration of the United Nations International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, the government says it's gratifying to note that Nigeria is no longer among the countries with impunity for crimes against journalists. Mr. Malami is optimistic that there is a solid foundation of reformed justice sector to be bequeathed by the Buhari administration, which according to him will help guarantee that never again will Nigeria feature amongst nations where journalists, citizens, and inhabitants of the country will suffer from any form of impunity in the future. The minister went on to say, quote, with the development of information and communication technology, and as the internet becomes a veritable tool for man's mediated communication, the minister says government is working to ensure safety of journalists against rhetorical aggression, trolling, incursion of privacy, and cyber attacks. Governor Yobe of River State has decried the non-compliance to COVID-19 protocols in some places of worship and warns that the state may be forced to take necessary action if the people don't take personal responsibility to guard against the deadly virus. The governor, who was speaking during a Thanksgiving service in Port Harcourt, the state capital, says it's time the residents took their health and that of others seriously. The event was also attended by the governor's wife, Justice Suzette Yesonwike, and members of the State Executive Council, party chieftains, and other dignitaries.
You have said here that we thank God that Nigeria is not like what is happening in other developed countries. That does not mean that we will take it for granted 85% of those who are here are not wearing masks. And that's the problem we have. Nobody wants to obey simple instruction. Everybody's on his own. Now when you get the element down, who suffers? Who spends the money? It's the state. Look at all of us. Even those who are coming close. My Bishop, this is not acceptable. The man father will have agreed that we should worship and allow everybody, but does not mean that we should disobey the protocol. So please, my Bishop, encourage our people to wear their mask. It is very, very important. So please, when I come next time, my Bishop, I will not be happy to see that people are disobeying. If this continues, then I will go back to now say it cannot be more than so number.
In part two, after the break, 2 persons lose their lives and many sustain various degrees of injury from a multiple vehicle accident in the Abule-Egba area of Lagos. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television, Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari asked the youth to end street protests and engage in meaningful discussions with governments towards ending all forms of police brutality in the country. Human rights groups to wrap 261 others asked courts to overturn the 9 million naira fine imposed on 3 television stations over their broadcast of EndSARS protests. Global rights body Amnesty International says it's received reports of extrajudicial killings in Yobe River State, asked the military to exercise restraint in dealing with civilians. And President Donald Trump and Democratic candidate Joe Biden hold rallies in key battleground states with just 2 days before the U.S. presidential election. Concerning security, the human rights body Amnesty International says it's received disturbing information from Yobe River State about extrajudicial killings allegedly carried out by the military. Amnesty, in a series of tweets on its verified Twitter handle, says some residents have reported seeing dead bodies on the streets. There are also allegations that soldiers are invading homes despite the existing curfew in the area. Amnesty International is therefore asking the military authorities to exercise restraint and stop the killings. The River State Governor, Nyesom Wike, had imposed a 24-hour curfew in the entire Yobe local government area during the week following reported cases of violence there. The governor also signed an executive order proscribing outlawed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, which he accused of hijacking the EndSARS protests to unleash carnage in the state. The military has lost one of its soldiers during a raid on bandits' hideout in Daskuru village in Faskari local government area of Katsina State. According to the acting director, Defense Media Operations, Brigadier Bernard Oyeko, the incident was recorded as the bandits stormed the village on motorcycles, shooting sporadically with the intent to scare the locals and loot valuables. He adds that the troops killed 3 bandits, rescued 3 nursing mothers with their infants, and arrested 2 bandits' collaborators in Katsina during the raid. Meanwhile, the war on terror and banditry has received a boost with the manufacture of some indigenous armored fighting vehicles by the Nigerian Army. Briefing journalists in Kaduna, the acting director of the Nigerian Army Public Relations, Colonel Sagir Musa, explains that the construction and repair of the vehicles and other combat equipment, as well as the manufacturing of 12.6mm anti-aircraft guns and repairs by the depot, will further energize the ongoing war against insurgency and banditry in the northern parts of the country.
This is a walking tour to Command Engineer in Depot Kaduna by the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tokodi Soborate. He is here to see ongoing works, construction of combat vehicles, particularly mines-resistant, ambush-protected vehicles that are very, very useful in our various theaters of operation, notably in the northeast where we are battling with Boko Haram. They proved to be effective. He also used the opportunity to inspect other projects like his intervention projects, whereby damaged armored vehicles, other combat vehicles are being repaired, and you have seen the brand new ones constructed by the Nigerian Army in partnership with Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria. You saw the ones they have constructed, they have manufactured locally here, and they have test-driven them, which we have witnessed. And then some of the vehicles that were damaged, particularly combat vehicles, like armored vehicles, which you saw, are also being backloaded here, and most of them have been repaired.
2 persons have lost their lives following an accident in Abule-Egba area of Lagos State earlier today. According to the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, the mishap followed a multiple vehicular accident involving 3 cars and a truck conveying alcoholic drinks. Lasema says that the remains of the victims have been deposited at the mortuary, while the other affected vehicles have been cleared to decongest traffic. Meanwhile, the Lasema DG says the agency has suspended recovery operations at the scene of the accident following an attack on its men. He laments that such attacks are becoming very worrisome. First responders are subjected to in the course of their duties. To health, and in Delta State, not less than 15 people have died mysteriously in the last 2 weeks in 2 communities in Ika Northeast local government area of the state. In an interview with Channels Television, the Delta State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Modi Onoye, says he has visited the affected communities with a team of medical experts with a view to unravel the cause of the mysterious disease in those places.
Myself, with my entire team, which included the officials of the World Health Organization, who were there at Utopu to see for ourselves, to get an initial insight. And then thereafter, a team led by the state epidemiologist went into the community to take further history, collect samples, and we're still on it. Those samples have been sent for tests because from what we saw, we suspected that it could be cases of viral hemorrhagic fever, which is about the period, or substance abuse, especially because of the age group and some of the symptoms that they did present with. And so presently we're still investigating and hoping that we should be able to come to a decision as to the clear line of action to take.
Better days lie ahead for the residents of Yobe State as the federal government has completed repair work on the 70-kilometer Potiskum-Kari Federal Road. Their rehabilitation is part of efforts to develop infrastructure in the state by the federal government through the Federal Road Maintenance Agency.
This is the state of Bauchi-Kari Road in 2018, which resulted in an increase in the number of road accidents and armed robbery. As a result of potholes, we recorded daily road accident here. Also, armed robbers seized the advantage of the bad state to rob and beat passengers in the night. We are grateful things have changed in this area. After a series of complaints, the Federal Ministry of Works approved the rehabilitation of the road and other interior roads in government institutions in the state.
Here, the intervention here, we cannot go beyond the threshold of the approved contract. What we did here is some concrete line drain work, as you can see it here, Cape's work, and the road is 675 meters length of road networks. But one thing, the important thing I want you to note is that prior to this intervention, you will see all the quarters here, the doctor's quarters, the CMD's house, and all the places that you see here. They are in a waterlogged area. During the rainy season, it will be difficult for them to access the wards and the administrative buildings.
One of the contractors handling the project pledged speedy quality work.
Due to rainfall, we delay with the works and later we continue. Up to now, we are working now. Almost now, like after 3 days, we are going to finish this work. And the work includes from the clearance, side clearance completely, the artwork, as you see, the drainage work of 330 meters, and the entire length for the asphalting is 670 meters. That is what currently we are executing, and within tomorrow, inshallah, we are going to finish the work.
The benefiting institutions, while appreciating the government for the gesture, believes the road will allow easy passage for users.
And this road construction will bring a lot of ease within the hospital. The whole road network has spanned through the staff quarters up to very crucial areas within the facility. And it will ease a lot of flood issues and then problems with the road.
The rehabilitation of the road network in the state will no doubt improve its economy, which has been affected by insurgency.
There appears to be some controversy brewing between the members of the National Assembly and the Minister for Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, over comments allegedly credited to the minister about the state of roads in Benue State. He is reported to have laid the blame of the condition of the roads on the doors of the lawmakers, an allegation the Senate spokesman, Ajibola Bashiru, denies. According to Senator Bashiru, it's necessary to respond to the claims by the minister in order to set the record straight, particularly against the backdrop of how critical the issue of road infrastructure is to the national development of the country. The statement from the Senate spokesman reads in part, for the 2020 fiscal year, the National Assembly approved the request for over 265 billion naira for capital expenditure by the executive. The upper chamber cannot help but wonder where Mr. Fashola got his figure of 600 billion naira, which he said was proposed by his ministry and allegedly not approved by the National Assembly. The Senate spokesman also described allegations by the minister that the National Assembly is prioritizing constituency projects over other projects as an attempt to incite Nigerians against the legislative arm of government. Now, an outcome is certain, the aftermath is not. Will the result of the presidential election in the United States influence its bilateral relationship with Nigeria and the rest of Africa? Babajide Ogusanwo, the data and information consultant, is with us to share some findings from history. It's good to have you on the News at 10.
Granules.
I'm wondering why. But maybe you'll answer that with our first question. America's presidential election and some of the Congress elections are holding this week. What sort of trade relationship has America had with Nigeria?
Now, our trade relationship can be classified as good and bad. And there are three reasons why I say it's bad. And the first is granules. Earlier this week, I spoke to a representative from the United States Trade Intelligence, from the United States Census Bureau, and I asked the question, apart from oil, what else does the United States import from Nigeria? And his answer was nuts. Apart from oil, the next thing that the United States imports from Nigeria, nuts. Last year, Nigeria exported $14 million worth of nuts to the United States. Now, Olumide, here's why I'm bothered. There's an American company, Apple. Every 2 minutes, it exports iPhones worth $14 million. In other words, the amount of nuts Nigeria exports to the United States in 1 year is equivalent to the amount of phones Apple exports around the world in 2 minutes. And so, the only thing that we're moving out to the United States, or the next on the list, apart from oil, is nuts. That's the first of bad news. Now, the second bad news is a lot of Nigerians are concerned that why isn't the United States behind our own candidate, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala? And tonight, I would like to share some facts about the United's trade with Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. In 2019, last year, the United States global trade, its trade with all of the world, was the equivalent of $4.1 trillion. You heard me right. Its trade with the world, $4.1 trillion. Its trade with all the countries in Africa was only $57 billion. Here's what I mean. The United States trade with Africa is not 1%. It is not 0.1%. The United States trade with Africa is 0.01%. In other words, Africa is insignificant to the United States trade activity. And here's the third of the bad news. The evidence today shows that Nigeria is not a sleeping giant. Based on these facts and our trade, Nigeria is a snoring giant. Now, let's talk about the good news. Now, the good news is when it comes to Africa's and Nigeria's relationship with the United States on security and immigration, yes, there's evidence that we have a good relationship. And that's because 2 out of every 10 Africans are Nigerians. And so when the United States looks at the African continent, in terms of population, in terms of security, stability, and immigration, Nigeria is relevant. But when it comes to trade, all it is apart from oil.
And I'm wondering how that can be improved on going forward. But did President Trump's America First program have a significant impact on how the country does business with Nigeria?
Now, what it has shown is that, yes, its America First program has continued. And if we even look at what I would like us to now take a look at, which are the top 3 facts of how the United States has been doing business with Nigeria in the last 4 decades, here's what you find. What you will notice is the United States right now is exporting more to Nigeria than Nigeria is sending to the United States. So we have a negative trade balance. So if you take a look at what has been going on, especially our exports, here's the first thing you'll notice. In 2008, we were exporting as much as $38 billion to the United States. In 2008, the evidence from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that last year, we only exported $5 billion. $5 billion relative to $38 billion in 2008. That's the first fact. So we're exporting significantly less to the United States. The second fact shows that we're also really not getting investors from the United States to bring in money into Nigeria. Last year, 2018 was $3.6 billion. We now had $4.6 billion last year. So it's really not so much money coming in to Nigeria. And if we also look at even the presidents that are interested in coming to take a look at what's going on in Nigeria, the last president was George Bush, 2003. And so for 17 years, going close to 2 decades, no president of the United States has visited Nigeria. And why? Because of nuts. Apart from oil, the next thing on the list that we export to the United States is nuts.
But if we increase the volume of export, will that make a significant...
So the question we should ask ourselves is, what is our national export strategy? What does Nigeria want to be really known for? What is of cosmic significance? Oh yes, if we want to do nuts, but how good are we selling our nuts? Do the United States citizens eat nuts and say, wow, this nut must be from
Okay, how much progress has Nigeria made with doing business with other African countries?
And perhaps really that's where the future is. Because what we've seen is a lot of these American, European countries aren't doing trade with Africa. We need to improve our trade with the other over 40, 45, 49 African countries. And that has really happened. If we take a look at what has happened in the last 3 years, 2016, 17, 18, the results from last year shows that even though 3 years ago, Nigeria's trade with Africa was just 9% in 2016, 9% in 2017, another 9% in 2018. Last year, our trade with all of Africa relative to our total trade grew to 14%. And so that is growth, that is improvement, and the future really is Africans must realize that it is now time for Africa first. If not, we'll still be seen as...
Finally, a very quick one. Do you think a Trump presidency will benefit Nigeria-U.S. relations second time around?
I don't think so, because for the United States, the value that they see and they're getting from Nigeria and the rest of Africa is currently insignificant to their total volume of trade. And so Africa is just another country for them, another continent that is insignificant when it comes to trade, but when it comes to security and migration, yes, Africa is significant. And that's one of the reasons why we might not even see Trump or Biden if whoever wins. But certainly we know that an outcome is certain between both of them. What will be the aftermath remains uncertain.
We hope that it certainly improves. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is
for coming on.
Do you want some granules?
Later. Babajide Ogunsowo, a data and information consultant on the News at 10. Now, we'll turn our attention to Kogi State, where Governor Yahya Bello has thrown his weight behind the establishment of integrated farm settlements for beneficiaries of the World Bank Agro-Processing Productivity Enhancement and Livelihood Improvement Support. Speaking during the presentation of the state program to members of the State Executive Council, he describes the initiative as a model for other states to emulate.
These are members of a state steering committee of the World Bank Agro-Processing Productivity Enhancement and Livelihood Improvement Support appeals. They are meeting with the Kogi State Governor and members of the council to discuss the proposed integrated farm settlement. The project development objectives of appeals is to enhance the agricultural productivity of small and medium-scale farmers and improve value addition along priority value chains in Kogi State. 1,600 women and youths were trained by appeals on different agricultural businesses of their choice, namely poultry, aquaculture, rice, cassava and cashew, and the beneficiaries are expecting a grant of 2 million naira each to kickstart their agro-businesses.
In case of processing, we were able to develop a model for cassava processing, cashew processing, as well as rice processing. So these are the things we did. Then we now look at all the beneficiaries. And then we insisted that we want to see some of the agricultural institutions or establishments that are available in Kogi State, so that it can be a starting point. Because we want to pull them together in a cluster, in an integrated farm settlement.
Governor Yahya Bello promises to give full support towards the establishment of integrated farm settlements, an idea he says will equally be replicated at the community levels to improve the livelihoods of more youths in the state.
Appeals will not just only empower 1,700 youths across the state. It has even direct impact on over 5,000 citizens, both youths and women.
The state project coordinator says the project is expected to deliver a commodity-based cluster formation model with associated business investment plans leading to the economic empowerment of the beneficiaries. Experts have noted the importance of agriculture as a catalyst for economic growth, and with the introduction of this program, which is expected to deliver sustainable agriculture to the people, concerned Nigerians in Kogi State are hoping that it will be sustained by successive administrations in the state.
6 hoodlums are currently being interrogated for their role in the burning and looting of headquarters of the Nigerian Ports Authority (NPA) in Marina, Lagos. During an assessment tour to ascertain the level of damage done, the managing director of the NPA, Hadiza Bala Usman, says the Nigerian military is now helping with the security of its facilities. She went on to say that operations have resumed in earnest, with loss adjusters stepping in with assessment and subsequent replacement of burnt items.
It has been a devastating period, an aftermath of destruction in several property as a fallout of the NSAS protest. Nothing really from this line of sight suggests anything could be wrong with this headquarters building of the Nigerian Ports Authority in Marina, Lagos. Whether as a carefully planned attack or a mere random action, the arsonist left more damages behind the glass claddings of this house. From the in-house eating area to several offices, an entire wing was torched. Not done, they went across the road and burnt every vehicle in sight at the park. It's a heartbreaking moment for the chief superintendent, who gets to see firsthand the extent of damage done.
Hoodlums attacked the premise. They were able to disarm the security personnel we had here, and they gained access to the premise. Where they touched vehicles, they were able to burn 27 vehicles within the premise. They touched a whole wing of the building. But were able to get the necessary support from Nigerian Armed Forces. They deployed here. They dispersed the hoodlums, and our firemen came into the premise and put out the fire.
It is, however, cheering news that critical files, documentation, payment systems, and account processes are intact, while operation has since commenced in earnest.
There has been a lot of work in terms of cleaning and determining the level of destructions that were done. We've invited our insurers. They've come in. All our assets are duly insured as required, so we're going through the process of reclaiming our insurance. But what is paramount is our services are not interrupted. Our networks and our systems have been functional. Within 2 days of the incidents, we're able to resume all port operations continued within 24 hours of the attack.
All asset damage are issued, and therefore, sooner rather than later, full recovery should be achieved.
Welcome to Sports News. The Handball Premier League have become the first tournament to hold after the federal government approved the reopening of contact sports in Nigeria. The tournament, which features 22 clubs, is taking place at the MKO Abiola National Stadium in Abuja.
Lifting of restriction on outdoor sporting activities, including football, is in line with earlier consultations with the Federal Ministry of Youth, Sports Development and the NCDC. However, this is limited to the actual sports itself, not with mass gatherings.
The announcement for the reopening of contact sports by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 clears the barriers for competitions that lie in wait. The MKO Abiola National Stadium in Abuja becomes the first arena to host one of such competitions, the third edition of the National Handball Premier League. The arena, as usual, is empty, and the spectator stands yawning because fans are not allowed physical attendance in compliance with the government's order banning large gatherings. The league, which is traditionally a two-phase format, is restricted to a single format owing to the streamlined schedule caused by the COVID-19 outbreak. The Handball Federation of Nigeria mandates all clubs to provide evidence of diagnostic tests as contained in the COVID-19 Sports Code by the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development before participating.
The health department is here. They are everywhere. We have a health department sitting in the hall. We have another one at the outdoor court. And they move around after the game. They move to the hostels to ensure that there are no health issues. Also, they try to observe that the distancing are also maintained in the hostels too.
Before this championship, there was this circular to all teams to make their COVID tests available 3 days before the championship, which all of the teams have complied, and they've sent their results to the secretariat. As I'm talking to you as of now, all cases are negative.
The success of the Handball Premier League with respect to adherence to health and safety protocols could determine the fate of other contact sports where large gatherings are wholly required.
To football and the English Premier League, Arsenal won away at Manchester United in the EPL for the first time in 14 years as Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's penalty earned a thoroughly deserved 1-0 win over the Gunners earlier this evening. United's run without a home win in the league stretches to 6 games as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's men sink to 15th in the table. Everton also missed this evening the chance to return to the top of the table as Callum Wilson scored twice to give Newcastle a first win in 3 matches. Former Bournemouth forward Wilson opened the scoring, converting a penalty he'd won after being fouled by Andre Gomez and then tapped in a second from Ryan Fraser's looping cross. Club stalwart James Ward-Prowse marked his 26th birthday with 2 goals from fantastic free kicks as Southampton moved up to 3rd in the table with victory at Aston Villa. To motorsport, reigning Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton has sealed a record-extending 93rd Formula One victory after recovering from 3rd to win the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix ahead of Valtteri Bottas after Max Verstappen's crash led to a chaotic finish. Hamilton was comfortably leading from Verstappen before the Red Bull driver, following a long-awaited pass on Bottas, dramatically spun into the gravel to bring out the safety car and Formula One's Imola return. The Mercedes 1-2 saw the Silver Arrows claim their 11th race victory from a possible 13 in 2020.
People watch it and might maybe think we're used to this, but it just always feels like the first with this team, and I think that's because of the spirit. And so I'm forever grateful to everyone to be a part of it, you know, to be a part of breaking a record like this. No team has done this before, so, you know, we got a great leader in our team, and I just also big thank you to Mercedes and Petronas and all of our partners who really, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without them.
The trophy now for this Emirates Gran Premio dell'Emilia Romagna. The congratulations to the team on what
On the foreign scene, Britain's Cabinet Minister Michael Gove says it's his fervent hope that England's new lockdown will end on December 2nd, but that ministers will be guided by the facts. The measures come into force on Thursday, but the Prime Minister is expected to deliver a statement to the House of Commons on Monday before a vote on the latest restrictions on Wednesday. Here's the global update.
A decision in the national interest based on evidence.
Britain's one-month lockdown, as announced by Prime Minister Boris Johnson, could be extended, so says Cabinet Minister Michael Gove, as the country continues to struggle to contain a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic. Speaking on television, he said the lockdown could be extended beyond December. The United Kingdom, which has the biggest official death toll in Europe from COVID-19, is grappling with more than 20,000 new coronavirus cases a day, and scientists have warned a worst-case scenario of 80,000 dead could be exceeded. Over in Russia, the daily tally of coronavirus cases hit a record high of 18,665 on Sunday, including 5,261 in Moscow, taking the national tally to 1,636,781. Authorities also reported 245 deaths in the last 24 hours, bringing the official death toll to 28,235. In the Middle East, Israel has begun human trials for its COVID-19 vaccine candidates, which, if successful, could be ready for the general public by the end of next summer. 80 volunteers will initially take part in the trial that will be expanded to 960 people in December. Should those trials succeed, a third stage with 30,000 volunteers is scheduled for April-May. The start of the festival season in India has been marked by crowds apparently ignoring the dangers of coronavirus. People flock to markets and popular visitor sites, seeming to forget the social distancing guidelines after months of restrictions to counter the pandemic. Large crowds gathered in New Delhi at a local market in preparation for the Diwali festival. Cases in India have been dipping since a peak hit in September, but experts have warned of a possible spike during the festival. Saturday, setting the highest single-day number of cases recorded around the world. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported 99,750 new COVID-19 cases and 1,009 new deaths on Saturday. The U.S. has recorded over 9 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and over 230,000 deaths so far.
U.S. presidential candidates in the upcoming election are heating up the campaign trail, and they try to convince voters before Election Day. Donald Trump is visiting 5 states today, while his Democratic challenger Joe Biden is focusing on Pennsylvania.
The U.S. presidential election holds this Tuesday, and Americans will know who becomes the next president of the United States. The candidates have been making last-minute efforts to rally voters to the polls on Tuesday. President Donald Trump today planned to reach as many states as possible, including Iowa, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Michigan, but eyes remain on Pennsylvania. This is where Trump stopped in 4 separate locations to speak to supporters. On the final leg of the tour, in Montrealsville, Trump confirmed that he had signed an executive order that calls on the U.S. Department of Energy to commission a study about the potential harm caused by banning or restricting fracking. Trump also thanked Special Forces for the dramatic rescue operation the Pentagon announced, which it carried out in northern Nigeria on Saturday to recover 27-year-old Philip Walton, an American citizen kidnapped days before.
Whereas last night, at my direction, the United States military conducted a successful operation to rescue an American hostage who was kidnapped just a short while ago. U.S. Special Forces brilliantly executed a daring nighttime movement. It was incredible. I've seen it. It was incredible. And we had no casualties, no injuries.
Pennsylvania is a battleground state which Trump won in 2016 by a narrow margin. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden campaigned with former President Barack Obama in Michigan on Saturday to voters in the state Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. Speaking to supporters, they played up the president's response to the coronavirus pandemic and Trump's taxes.
I understand this is a president who wants full credit for the economy he inherited and gets zero blame for the pandemic he ignored, but the job doesn't work that way.
$750? My Lord. And remember when he was asked about why I only paid that much, it's because I'm smart. He knew how to game the system.
On Sunday, Biden campaigned in Pennsylvania, which has seen protests after the fatal shooting of a black man by the police. Earlier, he attacked Trump's behavior towards Latinos in Latin America, accusing him of atrocious acts and vowing change if elected. The election is already setting a trend of seeing the most number of Americans participating in early voting. As at Sunday, some 92 million ballots have already been cast by voters, about a third of them in person and the rest by mail, and that includes Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and their respective running mates Mike Pence and Kamala Harris.
And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today asked the youth to end street protests and engage in meaningful discussions with government towards ending all forms of police brutality in the country. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Good night and have a good week ahead.